everyone, welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today, Eric, we are upholding our long-held tradition of reviewing the DC direct-to-video animated movies. And today we're doing the long-awaited Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. And this came out a couple weeks ago, and I wish we could have gotten this up before now. This was the first time that Eric and I, our schedules lined up and we were both able to watch it. So finally, we've watched the Flashpoint
Well,
Paradox.
it was just the first time
And
my financial schedule lined up so I could actually watch it.
well, I didn't want to come out and say Eric's
These
cheap.
things are expensive. They should be like $5.
Well, I'll tell you what though. Since we're talking about that, I went to a place and I saw the Blu-ray combo pack for like $14. I don't usually buy these right away. I usually rent them on Amazon and then buy them later. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. The Blu-ray and the DVD were exactly the same price. And frankly, I liked Flashpoint a little more than most people, but was also kind of hoping to see if the movie would kind of do something cool and different with it. So I was
I
actually kind of
wanna,
excited about this.
I
And
wanna talk about that for a second.
but let me say this. I was kind of excited about that. So this is the first one of these I've bought in like a year and a half.
I know usually it's me. I'm like, hey, I bought it the day it came out. When are we doing this? Um,
Yeah, this time I went ahead and bought it right up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay. So when Flashpoint came out, there's actually an unheard video that you and I did.
Oh no, I was really hoping you wouldn't bring this up.
We were about halfway through Flashpoint and Fear Itself, and we had this video where we were discussing Flashpoint versus Fear Itself, and I was on the standpoint of Fear Itself, you were on the standpoint of Flashpoint.
We did
Here's
a classical debate, and we each picked a side, and Eric freaking trounced me.
the
I mean, he just wiped the floor with me, and it didn't help that he was right. That was the thing.
okay, but the point that I was getting to was, I think it's really interesting thinking back on that video, and I wish it had been made. I wish you'd put it up
It was just
because
so.
I know. At this point, Flashpoint has become like his comic book swear word. It's so closely associated with the New 52 and all the negative feelings about the New 52. I feel bad for it at this point. Like like people really really turned on this not because they didn't like it, but because of what it led to.
It's the
Um
transition. And so it's
yeah,
really hard. It's really hard for people not to look at this and go, if it weren't for Flashpoint, which is not fair, because 52 could have just happened without this easily.
now this is also really the point. I think Flashpoint is really when I realized that I was genuinely and truly a Marvel fan, not a DC fan like I thought. Because I guarantee you, if Flashpoint had been done at Marvel, I would have eaten it up. I would have been so excited to see alternate versions of Captain America and Spider-Man, and I was like, I kind of just care about Green Arrow and Batman, and that's kind of my feeling with DC a lot of the times. Um, my biggest concern going into this, and it should be noted, I still haven't finished Flashpoint. I have all 5 issues, still haven't finished it. I've read the first 3 and just never cared to go forward. Um,
Oh wow, really? All right.
Yeah, I've still got them, just haven't finished it. Because the New 52 happened, and I kind of just didn't care. Um, I thought the biggest problem
Well,
going
also I lost that argument. If I could have convinced you
into
that Flashpoint was, pretty good, but yeah, unfortunate. Well, what happened was then the next issue came out. After we did that recording, and I was like, wow, this really isn't as good as I thought it was.
well, I think the problem with Flashpoint, and going into this adaptation, I think the biggest problem with Flashpoint, and this was the big thing between you and I, is that I wasn't reading any of the side things.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you
Because some of the
were.
side things are really pretty cool.
And looking at this movie, I was like, wow, there is no story here. We keep having, I guess, getting into the movie, Flashpoint doesn't have a story. There's nothing there until the last, 10 minutes. They spend all of their time showing you all of this other world stuff in this movie, and, they really tried to put as much of that Flashpoint world stuff in this movie, and it all felt so superfluous, especially when we get to the end and we spend all of that time on the big final fight, and I'm like, can you just undo this, Flash? None of this matters. You're just gonna fix the world.
Yeah, and then he fixes the world, and then it's all over. And so the whole, I don't ever really care about Aquaman or Wonder Woman, even
Because
with all this dialogue that they have, because you know that they're not gonna be the same versions of themselves 10 minutes from now.
and it's okay earlier in the film to some extent because you're learning the world that the Flash is in. But when you get to the end and the Flash is just sitting there watching this, I'm like, just fix it already. Um,
I feel like all of the all of the problems almost all the problems I had with this movie were things I had with Flashpoint. If I have one major criticism with this thing, it's that it's it's too close to the source material. There was a chance to really improve on this, and they didn't take it.
I would agree completely. I think uh, Flashpoint, I think on its own has a really weak story, and I think they one of the things that I think they really dropped the ball on is that Flashpoint came, I think, a year after Flash Rebirth. And with Flash Rebirth, there was this whole big deal made out of the death of Barry Allen's mom. Going into this film, if you don't know she's dead, the entire film doesn't make sense, like
Yeah.
to some extent.
Well, you know she's dead at the beginning because they show you a funeral.
Yeah, but it's not driven to home. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing, yeah, but that's the point I wanted to make is it's not a matter of knowledge, it's a matter of experiencing it. And I think that problem is all over this as a movie. Maybe the biggest problem with this as an adaptation is that it was such a strange choice because, and I mean, like, I walked into it hoping that that could be rectified, but now that I've seen it, I'm just not sure what they would have done because I feel like if you don't already know the source material, and not just have you read Flashpoint, but do you know anything from DC before this, this movie cannot work hard enough to bring on people that just walk into this liking superheroes and knowing nothing about comic books. It doesn't work. You have to know comic books to even follow this.
That was something I was fighting with a lot watching this.
Would
I
would you
had
agree with
this
that?
Well, I had this feeling where I was like, was that first 5 minutes really enough to establish to the audience what the universe used to be like? So when we cut over, we understand that it's different. But
I don't
then
think so.
the other part of my mind is fighting with A, the people that are going to watch this are comic book fans. And B, if they're not, they've probably at least seen the Justice League cartoon or I'm really arguing with myself over
Me
whether or
too.
not the fact that the entire thing is an alternate universe and they don't really invest you in the normal universe is a problem because I find it really hard to believe that anyone is going to watch this with not some level of familiarity with the DC universe. So I'm
You're absolutely right, but what I'm wondering, because I've had this problem with some of the others too, where I still feel like there are characters that will pop in that are these really minor characters that are kind of there just as kind of fan service, but then your average viewer that doesn't know comics might look at this and go, I really wish I knew who that was. You don't even have the common courtesy to at least tell me their names. We had that a little bit with, what was it?
Crisis on Two Earths.
Well, Crisis on Two Earths had that problem. What was the I'm just trying to think. Was it Justice League Doom or was it Batman Superman Apocalypse? I forget. Not Apocalypse. Batman Superman.
No, it was
Uh,
Crisis on Two Earths, man, where we kept seeing like all these alternate versions, and we were like, is that
oh
supposed
yeah,
to be?
the alternate versions were a thing. But I'm even thinking about. Oh, I know what it was. I'm even thinking about Public Enemies, where you have like this big roster of characters, and I recognize some of them, but not other ones. And
Oh,
um,
oh, with the villain fight. Yeah, we didn't actually do that one.
yeah,
That was
before
before
we
we
were
started
doing
doing
this.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was just trying to think of examples of that from the past because I knew I had that. So yeah, with this, you're right. Your average person that's even going to think to watch this is going to know who Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman are, and probably at least know Cyborg. But then when you get into the Flashpoint world and you get into things like there's Deathstroke. Who cares?
Yeah. Um,
Unless you really know DC. So I guess I'm just saying I don't even know if this is a problem. I'm just saying that like Okay, because this is the other really weird thing. I've been talking to a few people, because this has been out for a couple weeks now. I've been talking to folks that don't know comics that well, that liked this even quite a bit better than I did. And I didn't hate this, by the way. I actually watched it twice. I didn't like it very much the first time. I went ahead and watched it a second time and enjoyed it quite a bit better.
I've only
And
seen it once. I'm kind of interested to watch it with my friends and who are
yeah,
casual comic book fans and see what
yeah.
they think.
The I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day who is into Batman but doesn't read much of anything else, and he hadn't read Flashpoint, and he really loved it. And the reason he liked it so much was because he got to be surprised by Thomas Wayne and the Joker being Martha Wayne. And if you
I
walk
have a
into
thing to
this,
say about that.
but let me say this: if you walk into this and you don't know anything about Flashpoint, that novelty could potentially be enough to get you through this.
I felt like
Just the ideas of it, just on the surface of conceptually, because you have to admit that if you don't know the source material, this is kind of fun to look at.
yeah. Um Specifically with the Martha Wayne thing, I I I don't know what to say about that because like I feel like not having that story kind of I don't know. That was the one where I was like, "Oh, you just touched on it," and I kind of wish you'd actually I don't know, done something else with that. I
I was
felt
glad they didn't go any farther with it. And the reason I think that's good, well, either that or they should have made a Flashpoint Batman movie where they actually developed it a lot more than the miniseries did, because the miniseries really doesn't do anything more with it than the movie does, believe it or not. It kind of just has a fight at the end with him and Martha Wayne Joker, but like they don't do very much with their characters at all. It kind of just is the novelty of look, Martha Wayne is the Joker. Um, yeah, that's about it. I mean, I like that that was kind of in there because that was from that mini. If I'm remembering right, the fact that Martha Wayne as Joker plays not at all in the miniseries. It's not even in there.
in the miniseries.
I don't think it's even in there.
It's in the miniseries. That's where it happens.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Do they show the Joker thing?
yeah. It's oh wait, you're talking about the Flashpoint miniseries.
I'm talking about the Flashpoint miniseries. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the fact that she's the Joker isn't even brought up in Flashpoint.
No. Okay. Yeah. That's strictly from the Batman thing. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I'm being confusing. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they actually did bring in a few things from those minis.
Well, yeah. All of the stuff with Wonder Woman and Aquaman comes from the minis mostly.
Not all of it. The big conversation from the end is word for word in issue 5.
That's why I said all of it mostly, which is a
Oh,
really dumb sentence.
no, I know, but I'm also telling you that because you said you only read the first 3 issues.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe you wouldn't
That's fair.
know with that. And you also didn't read that miniseries, so how would you know?
Because I read the first 3 issues, and therefore that qualifies me to talk about the entire thing.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to back you in a corner. I'm just saying. I just wanted to tell you that that conversation they have at the end is word for word. By the way, a lot of exchanges in this movie are word for word from the comic book.
I actually noticed a number of them from the issues I did read. Um, I I want to talk about the violence
Yeah, go right ahead.
because I know you mentioned to me that you had an issue with the violence, right?
Um, I don't know. I had less of an issue with it seeing it the second time. Maybe at that point I was desensitized to it and expecting that it was going to be there. Did it need it? Did it earn that?
Here's
That's my
here's
question.
here's the thing. This ties into a larger issue I have with this entire film, which we kind of touched on. I This is such a weird film on its own. I feel like this is a season finale because I think all of the violence absolutely works 100% because it's jarring to see this. It's jarring to see the superheroes fight this violently as opposed to how they usually fight. The
Yeah, absolutely.
problem is it's a 90-minute film. You get to see in on its own, you get to see the superheroes for 5 minutes and then it cuts over. It's relying on your previous knowledge of these characters, probably mostly from the Just League cartoon. It's a problem that's inherent just in adapting this particular story. I don't
You're
know how you
right.
do it to fix it.
And we've had that. Well, I don't think you can. I think that's what makes it such a weird choice. We've had this issue with some of the other movies too, that as standalone movies, they're relying too much on not just prior knowledge, but just on the fact that this is so complicated to even discuss, the fact that other things had to have existed in the universe, they're based on things that you might have read in the comics, but that they never made the movie for. So it's kind of a standalone universe, and it's kind of not. um, and it just gets really kind of confusing. So I would say they need to start, if they're going to do more things like this, Eric, simply all they need to do is either, well, that would be a bad idea. I was going to say, like, make these things somehow canonical with comic books.
Okay,
Um,
well, actually,
but
I have a
the other
different
thing,
thing. I have a
but
different,
the other
or
thing I
I
was
have a
going to
different
say,
take. Sorry.
yeah, I was just going to, because this was my real thing. The other thing is, they really ought to just make a line of these that are all in the same universe, right? Like, just make the Flash movie before this, and then do Flashpoint, and then it would totally work.
Okay, well, here's the thing. They get Kevin Conroy back for Batman. Ron Perlman comes back as Deathstroke. Um, they have who's Superman this?
Lois Lane.
Okay, I feel like what I think they should have done. I think they should have made this a sequel to the Justice League cartoon show. I think they should have said this was in the same universe and do an animated reboot. I think
That'd be great, but that's never going to happen.
no, no. Well, and I don't even mean TV shows. I mean, we know that the next film after this is Justice League War, which is based on the
Yeah.
first arc of New 52. That means nothing in a line of DVDs. They're all self-contained.
No,
I
it
think
doesn't. You're right.
if they wanted this story to be anything, they should have made this DVD a sequel to the Justice League animated series, and then all of this violence would be much more jarring if you
Yeah.
sold this as a sequel to that series. Um, as its own property, it's just weird. Um, and I felt like the voice cast was weird too, because they got some people back, but then other people didn't come back. Like Steve Bloom as Lex Luthor was really weird for me. Um,
Yeah,
but
except Lex Luthor has like 6 lines of dialogue and then gets killed.
but I immediately knew he was Steve Bloom and not whoever usually does. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I just want to call him Kurgan. Um, oh, also, I have a really, really, really minor thing to complain about that you're going to laugh at me and tell me it doesn't matter at all.
And, Eric, it just doesn't matter at all.
I hate,
Well, what?
hate Grifter's voice. This is not
What?
what
He
Grifter
gets
sounds.
5 lines of dialogue.
It's not what Grifter sounds like. This is his
Oh,
one chance to get a voice actor that makes him sound like the coolest person on the planet, which he is, and he doesn't sound like Grifter should.
to be fair, I'm not into that stuff. I don't know Grifter, so I just don't care. But I can see why that annoys you since he's never
Imagine
really
the
been
single
animation.
coolest individual you could, and that's Grifter.
But again, that's another problem that not the voice thing clearly, but that's another problem that the comics had was he shows up and he's pointless.
Yeah, that's got to be even more confusing. Even if you have a knowledge of the DC universe, the second he shows up, anyone that's just seen like the cartoons has to immediately go, who's that guy?
Yeah, the second you see Canterbury Cricket, you're like, what? Why Canterbury Cricket? And then estrogen. Wow,
Is
estrogen.
there too much fun in that
The,
Mount Dew cap?
that was the best Freudian slip ever. So Etrigan shows up, and you might, if you have a history with the animated shows, you might at least be like, okay, well, I saw him in one episode of Batman.
He shows up in Batman Beyond, doesn't he? He's got an episode there too, I
No,
think.
he doesn't. Etrigan?
Oh no, you know what? I'm thinking of a Batman Beyond comic I read when I was a kid.
Yeah, no. He shows up in the animated series like maybe one time. I don't know if he shows up in Justice League. I haven't seen all of that yet.
I actually haven't seen all of it either. I think he shows.
Yeah, I know.
No, no, he
Isn't that sad?
definitely shows up in Justice League.
Aren't
Um,
we sad comic book fans? We haven't seen all of Justice League.
it's expensive. I've
You
seen
know, here
most.
we are saying it's on Netflix.
Actually, my TV's broken now. I have to buy a new TV.
God, you have an excuse for everything, man.
No, my TV broke today. It doesn't work no more.
Oh, today? Oh.
Uh,
Anyway. Anyway, well, I'm sorry. Let's get back into the nitty gritty of Flashpoint. So there is a nice attempt at a character arc for Barry Allen, and I like that at least it's kind of a Flash movie over being a Justice League movie,
That's
despite
some,
the title,
that's
because
that
they feel like they have to have the word Justice League in it to sell it, or they can't sell it.
To be fair, that's true. They
No,
they
and it is
changed
true,
that.
and I get that, and it's annoying. But I like that even though Justice League is in the title, they at least still kind of tried to make it a Flash movie.
It's not a Justice League movie though. Like I want to say that
It's not
this is a Flash movie.
because
Um,
the Justice League never come together as well. I'm sorry. At least at the beginning, the Justice League all shows up. They call themselves the Justice League. They kind of help out Flash. So at least there's an attempt at an appearance to make the title sort of
can
kind
I
of work.
complain
But yeah,
about
it's a
that
Flash.
appearance at the beginning? I have two
Yeah,
complaints.
of course you.
First
You
one,
know what? I can't, Eric. I can't bring up anything without you being like, yeah. So you know that thing that you sort of just said. You kind of like, yeah, it sucks. You're wrong.
Superman's face is all scrunched up and weird.
I don't like the character designs of a lot of these characters. By the way,
It didn't bother me that much when we get to the Flashpoint universe. It really seemed to all be in that like opening where I was like, "What is wrong with Superman's face?" Uh,
yeah, I didn't. What's wrong with your face?
but the other thing is, I hate that Cyborg is part of the team pre-Flashpoint. I
But don't you
feel
think that
like
is an
that would have
attempt
been.
with a? Yeah, but you know what though? I'm gonna take up for it to a degree because for a standalone movie, for an attempt at a standalone movie, they're doing that for your average viewer that doesn't know anything.
I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
All right, go ahead. No, I'm just saying that's probably why they're doing it. I'm not saying it's working, but it's just an attempt at. I
I
don't think you make this work as a standalone movie. I'm just praising them for trying in
What
places.
should have happened is you don't have Cyborg on the Justice League. Then you spend all this time getting to know Cyborg in the Flashpoint universe. Maybe just drop a line from the Flash being like, you aren't you supposed to be with the kids? Like you're a Teen Titan. And then when he comes back and the universe has been reset, he's now part of the Justice League. That's what you do. Especially
Honestly,
if the next movie is going to be Cyborg, the origin stories, guest starring Darkseid and the Justice League.
okay, well, since you like to always do this, like, I got two things about that, Eric. I got two things about that. The first thing is, I didn't even remember that Cyborg was there at the beginning until you just said that, and I watched this twice.
It
So
bugs
I
me.
don't think it's that big of a deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal.
All right, whatever.
You're
Second,
making you're making a molehill out of this mountain.
yeah, yeah. The second thing is, I am convinced that most people, when that new Justice League movie comes out, will have no idea that there is any correlation between that and this.
I'm interested to see if there is a correlation.
Yeah, I know, me too, honestly. Because when you said that, I was like, yeah, but is that a sequel? Can we even be sure that it even
Let's
counts?
assume it is because we know comics. I'm interested to see.
I'm not assuming anything, man. I'm not sure there's a logic to this any more than there is to a lot of 52.
Yeah, I don't.
So, uh,
I really feel like this movie would have worked better if this was a sequel to something. If all of these DVDs had been connected, like that would be different. This feels like it. Yeah, it doesn't work standalone. This feels
now,
like
that's
the ending of something or the conclusion of, a season of television or something like that.
yeah. For the sake of not repeating ourselves, let's get into some other issues, and I'd like to talk about things that I liked. Can I do that? I liked the voice
I
for Thomas Wayne a lot.
I really like the voice for Thomas Wayne.
I thought he was wonderful.
I liked Barry Allen.
I thought he was great too. Yep. Yeah, and I
Um,
appreciate, and I hate to say this, I really appreciated that they didn't bring in Rosenbaum for that. And I know Rosenbaum wasn't doing Barry Allen. I know he was doing Wally West, but given that this is the Flash and that was kind of the voice we knew, I kind of figured they might do that, and he wouldn't have been right for this version.
well, didn't he do Barry Allen in Justice League Doom?
See, I think you're right. I think you did. So I had every reason to think they might do that.
Here's the thing about the Flash. They could really say it's whatever. Like we never really see the Flash as not the Flash. They can kind of just say it's whatever the Flash, whoever the Flash is that's in the comics. If Bart stayed the
Except
Flash,
that
then he was Bart.
except that in this version, I mean in this movie at least we saw Barry Allen out of
Oh,
costume.
no,
And
in the movie, yes, but like in the
yeah,
Justice League, in the other animated films, he's just the Flash.
No, it didn't matter that he was Barry Allen there, but here there is distinctly, and I would be remiss to not say this in case Dan Torrey is listening, who vehemently hates this character and loves Wally West, that there is certainly, even outside of the comics, even just in this movie, a giant difference between Barry Allen and Wally West.
Dan hates Barry?
Ah, he hates Barry. That is his biggest complaint with New 52 is that we don't have Wally West anywhere.
No, that's completely fair because Wally is a better character, and I was against bringing Barry back, but I kind of like what they did pre-Flashpoint. Like I like the Jeff Johns run. I
Do,
don't
and
hate
to be
Barry.
fair, I don't know if Dan read that. I think it's just I like Wally and I don't
Well,
like
then his
Barry. So,
opinion is invalid, and he should just not talk.
well, he's not here to defend himself. So,
If he was, he'd be eating.
well, he and I would be sharing the same boat because of that argument that we never posted that I lost. But anyway, so I really liked that voice. How did you feel animation wise overall? Because I thought, even though I didn't like some of the character models, and I wasn't real sure about the choice of the opening, just because I thought that the kind of more sort of anime look wasn't the same all the way through. Although maybe it's okay that they went with two different styles because like the universe changes and now the styles look different. Maybe that's okay. But overall, like I thought the action was really well choreographed.
I think this continues. I don't remember when we started saying this. I feel like maybe starting with Dark Knight Returns, maybe whatever one came right before it. I think they have consistently looked really good. I think they
Yeah.
finally hit their groove animation wise, where they stopped trying to be super stylized or trying to make it look like the artist, and they just focused on making it look good.
Yeah,
And I
and that's
think
why I think even if you didn't love the choice, because I'm now that I've seen it, I'm not sure the choice was the right thing to adapt. But having watched it and feeling all the reservations I had about the actual comic book story, at least it's really pretty to look at. I can't say that I didn't have fun with a lot of scenes.
here's the thing, because I feel like narratively this film is all over the place. We
Oh, I
we disappear from the. It's because that Flashpoint doesn't have a story. We leave Flash for a large period of time to go look at Wonder Woman and Aquaman, ostensibly just to have a greater understanding of this universe. It's not part of the story. And that's what really worked in the comics was that you had all of these other miniseries filling out this universe that they created, which
and
was
they were
interesting.
actually telling stories. Yeah, and so then at least we got to live in this universe for a while and we could appreciate it like I wanted to as an Elseworlds thing. The big argument that I made when we did that debate is that if you look at this as an Elseworlds story and you don't look at it as a starting the universe over, transition piece, it kind of works. Then we got to the end of it, and it doesn't work that way at all because the whole narrative, what little story is actually there, because I'm agreeing with you that there's not much of one, is ultimately just to kind of start this universe over and then create yet a second kind of alternate thing with 52. Wouldn't it have been? Then this is the big point I want to make about this whole thing. Wouldn't it have been really cool if we had just not used this as a because I feel like this is mostly just a big kind of 52 propaganda thing. I hate to use the word propaganda, but I feel like it's like 52 is where we are now. We want everybody to love 52, so we're going to start making more movies with 52. We'll start with
Oh, and by the
Flashpoint.
way, the 52 costumes look just as bad in animation at the end.
Yeah, I don't like that either. So wouldn't it have been great if here we had adapted Flashpoint, but instead of making such a big deal out of 52 is where DC is now, everybody has to accept it, wouldn't it have been great if we had just done this alternate universe and done this as an Elseworld story and left out the whole framework of of Barry has changed the universe and simply started with Thomas Wayne with his casinos and been like, what? And it's just this is the universe. This is this DC universe, and we're going to tell a story in it.
Yeah, no, I think that would have been great.
I really wish that that's what this had done.
The 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 problem that this movie has is it's trying to adapt Flashpoint, which doesn't have a lot to it, but at the same time, it's trying to give you that experience that you had. I didn't have it because I didn't read any of the tie-ins. I've read a couple of them since, but it's trying to give you that experience of look how big this universe is, look how different everything is. But because it's a 90-minute film, that all feels really superfluous.
Yeah,
It's
what's
not
really
just cool
interesting
to
is
jump around and see all that stuff
no.
because you want the story to keep going.
What I was surprised by watching this because I pulled out my Flashpoint comics and I did the same thing I did with All Star Superman, where I tried to see how much of it followed the panels and where they skipped around and stuff. It's kind of fun to kind of try to read along where you can. And I was flipping through and I was surprised by how much of it lined up. I was surprised by what was added in places, but for the most part, a lot of the jumping around stuff that you're talking about is actually in the miniseries. And surprisingly, it just well, not even surprisingly, it doesn't work. What happens is if you read some of the tie-ins, those things don't feel as jarring because you've been living with some of those characters and other things. So if you're looking at the Aquaman mini, and if you're looking at like the Lois Lane mini and some of those things, when you see those characters in this, you're not as jarred because you're like, okay, that's where they are in this thing, and then we get to go look at them in other places. In Flashpoint Paradox, we're seeing mostly not all, not entirely. Some things are drawn from those minis, but for the most part, it's just the scenes we got from those characters in Flashpoint, and without that extra material, you really don't live with them enough to care.
Well, now you know where I was coming from.
Yeah, no, and you were absolutely right. The problem was I was eating up Flashpoint with a spoon, so I was reading like half of those minis
Right.
when Flashpoint came out. So it was impossible to separate myself from that. It was really difficult. Like Citizen Cold shows up at the beginning of this and gets like no dialogue. Citizen Cold in his own miniseries is awesome.
I remember you raving about the Citizen Cold miniseries.
I didn't like how it ended, but I really liked it on the
That
whole.
seems to be the consensus about most of the Flashpoint minis, actually, is people like, it was really
Yeah.
fun, and then it ended.
Then it ended. I didn't read the end of the Flying Graysons, but I liked what I read of it.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's neither here nor
hey,
there.
can I tell you my most annoying deviation? I don't know if it's actually fixed in the comics.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why doesn't Hal Jordan get the ring?
Because it flew off for some reason
Flew
into
where?
space.
Because
I,
in the
I don't
original
know.
comics, it flies to him. The ring goes and gets him.
And he's still on Earth. Where did it go? It might have gone to somebody else in the comics, and I just don't know because I didn't read that one. Because I'm
Okay.
pretty sure Hal Jordan got his own miniseries in that. I forget. I thought he had one.
Okay. I was curious if you knew what happened to.
I'm sorry, I really don't. We'd have to research that.
I know Green Arrow got like a one issue, like something.
Oh, did he? I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Flashpoint trades now. There is a three-issue Hal Jordan miniseries, and there's a three-issue Abin Sur miniseries. So maybe there
Right.
is an answer to why he didn't get the ring. Just in the context of the film, I was like, why didn't he get the ring?
Yeah, doesn't this feel? And I know we keep saying this. It's difficult not to repeat ourselves on this. This just seems incomplete.
It does. And you know what would have been fantastic? Or what could still be fantastic and might actually make this movie better? How
Yeah.
great would it be if they put out another one of those DVDs of like 4 or 5 shorts that were all set
Oh,
in this universe?
why not? Because here's the thing about Flashpoint. I enjoyed this universe. I thought it was a really interesting, again, kind of Elseworlds thing. The idea of doing a big war between Atlantis and Themyscira is a great idea.
I'm actually kind of. Here's what I'll say. In having watched this, I kind of want to go back and read the miniseries that I didn't read. I kind
Well,
of
yeah,
want to read the Aquaman Wonder Woman stuff. I kind of want to go in and find out what happened to Hal Jordan that he didn't get the ring. I kind
because
of
you
want to go
just
get the trades for the rest of. I don't want to reread Flashpoint, but I want to read the other stuff.
well, you just watched a clip show.
Yeah. Well, and if you just read Flashpoint, you're just reading a clip show. I kind of want to go get the other Flashpoint trades and read that stuff because it's a cool universe.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of beaten that horse to death. What did you like about this?
I like the animation. I like the violence as a. I think this is easily the most graphically violent of all of the of all the DC direct to DVD videos. I think
Yeah,
even more so than Dark Knight Returns. I think it's more
it is.
graphically violent. Um, And I like that as a contrast, which it's clearly supposed to be. There's a couple of points where they pull punches, particularly with Batman. They don't let Batman be what he was in the comics. Like he drops the chick off the building, and Cyborg has to save her, and like you don't get that moment. Well, at the end you do when he shoots Professor Zoom, but like you
Yeah,
don't get,
you see that through his head.
which is a really cool shot. But like you don't get the Batman putting a machete in Killer Croc's head kind of a stuff. Um, I really like. I mean, going along with kind of digging the universe, I really like the characterization of pretty much everybody.
I'm sorry, can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
How is the movie pulling its punches by having Cyborg catch Yo-Yo when he does that in the comic?
Does it happen in the comic?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, okay, okay. Watching the just watching the movie, I felt like I never got to see him kill anybody like he did in the comics.
Yeah, I want to ask you this again. A lot of my reservations about this are all just comic book things, and so I guess if I have to complain about it, it's just they didn't have to be this faithful. But do you buy? And maybe it's not even a big deal. But do you buy that Thomas Wayne loses his son, becomes Batman, quits being a doctor, and becomes the world's greatest tactician? Do you buy that? Because the
Only
discussion I have with it really comes off like we need Batman in the Justice League because he's Batman, and whoever becomes Batman is going to be the world's greatest something. He's going to be this amazing intellect. The problem I have with that is Bruce Wayne lost his parents at a really young age, and he had a long time to shape himself. Thomas Wayne was older when it happened.
um well, there's this catch-all that they have with the ripple effect forwards and backwards that
Yeah,
that nothing's, which I don't like. I think
I
that's a
don't like
cop.
it. You can explain anything with that. It's a cop out, and I don't think it counts as a paradox.
Yet no,
I'm gonna call it a paradox, but it's not really a paradox because we can just explain anything. But here's the thing I don't get. Okay, it's a ripple effect caused by Flash saving his mother, and of course the big character arc is supposed to be learning what you can do and what you can't do. What you can things you can stop and things you can't stop.
and
Okay, fine.
is that from the comics? Does he go back and save his mom?
Yeah,
When does Flash get the ability to run that fast?
I'm honestly not sure. I don't know about all the Speed Force thing, but let me make my point real quick
Okay,
before I
sorry.
forget. No, that's okay. But like he has this kind of character arc. That's what it's about. Here's what I don't get. I feel like you're not really telling, and clearly this is not an especially character-driven story anyway. But it feels like things just happen because the universe wants them to, because the script wants them to. When you get to the end of this and Flash saves his mother, and then things get as altered as 52 wants them to be because things still kind of changed, but the ripple effect isn't as dramatic. Why? I don't know. There's really no good reason. It's just, well, if you save your mom, there's this giant ripple effect. But if you go back and stop yourself from doing all that, then there's this other sort of more minor ripple effect. But then how minor is it? Because 52 is really quite different from regular DC. I'm just saying,
Except for when it
I feel
doesn't
like
want
it's
to be,
all.
like with Batman.
Am I splitting hairs, or is it as arbitrary as I feel like it is?
I feel like it's completely arbitrary, and I thought it was a really, really terrible um, time travel
Device.
explanation. Like one
It's
of the
flimsy.
worst I've ever heard. Like the idea that time works like if you throw a rock in water and it ripples both ways, that's just a really lazy way of doing something like that.
Well, because the problem with it is, it's not really a paradox. It's not as interesting. The problem is, it's just not interesting to me. It's not as interesting as a domino effect. You do something in this universe that causes something to happen, something else. So then you get really arbitrary things like Martha Wayne becomes the Joker instead of whoever actually became the Joker. Why the Joker? How did you get this out of that universe? It's like, well, it's something called the DC universe, and there has to be a Joker, so somebody else becomes the Joker, but it has nothing to do with the original one, and it's just because she got blood on her mouth. And I don't know. I like all of that is just really arbitrary to me.
Yeah, and a lot of like the Green Lantern
If
thing, a
it's
lot
just
of
an
it seems
Elseworlds
like
thing, yeah. If it was just an Elseworlds thing, if it was the DC universe actually happened this way and Martha Wayne becomes the Joker instead of somebody else, it's not like What If in Marvel where you need an inciting incident that causes that. It's just, well, in this version, that's how it happens. But with this, you need that incident.
right.
I think. I don't know. That's just me.
Well,
Not
and
everybody
I
likes
remember
that.
thinking
That's how
back
I
to
feel.
the discussion we had about it. I
Yeah.
distinctly remember that one of my arguments, because at that point we thought it was Reverse Flash had done all of that.
Right.
My one of my arguments was, so did he? Why? What did he gain by going back and making Bruce die instead of Martha, or instead of Martha and Thomas? What did he gain by doing this and that? Um, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, Reverse Flash didn't. Why is Reverse Flash even here? Because he didn't actually do any of this. Why is he here? Flash did it to himself.
Yeah. Well, as a standalone thing, it really is impossible to understand why he's there except just rubbing it in Flash's face. Um,
Not sure how he
I,
even
you know,
still exists, honestly.
I will suggest something though. The movie actually handles that better than the comic does because in the comic, Professor Zoom just shows up and is like, "Look, I'm here," and Flash is like, "Oh crap, you're here." In the movie, he at least has to do some detective work to find him, so that's an improvement.
What was it in the original?
Like I said in the original, during the big giant climactic battle scene at the end, Professor Zoom just shows up.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Flash goes, "Look, here I am, hi!" And in the movie, they actually have to do some work to find him. Now, he still plants something so that they can find him. He still wants to be found, but at least Flash has to do something.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I think that's a little better. There are a lot of things, like I said, in this from Flashpoint that bugged me in Flashpoint. I still don't love that, like, um, Zoom, just to be a jerk, like gives him the yellow costume, and it's like, oh man, if you're gonna wear a costume, you have to wear his. That sucks. And then he doesn't even have to. He just like uses some friction, and suddenly it's red. Well, that's a bit of a cop out, isn't it? Like, wouldn't it have been cool if he had to run around in his villain's clothes to kind of show that he's becoming the Flashpoint version of the Flash as he's losing his memories and stuff? I thought that would have been a really cool parallel. Nope, he just turns it red.
And then his body magically fixes itself.
Well, I remember that being the thing that made you quit reading.
No, it wasn't that his body magically fixed itself. It's that they had this big cliffhanger ending
Yeah.
where, oh no, it didn't work, and he gets struck by lightning, and then literally the opening page of the next issue is, okay, let's just try this again. Oh, it works now. That's when I stopped. There was
I
no
really
reason
thought,
for it to not work the first time.
well, not only was there no reason for it not to work, but that was a really stunning cliffhanger, and I was so jazzed to see where it was going to go because suddenly it's being unpredictable.
And it went.
And then it didn't go there. I mean, I realize this is kind of supposed to be Flash's story, but given the fact again that it's not much of a story. It's more of just an excuse to change universes around, of just being a different sort of crisis without calling it that. I kind of thought that where it was gonna go would have been Flash died right there, and now Batman has to take over. And it becomes Thomas Wayne's story. I really thought that's where it was going to go. And again, I don't want to complain that it just didn't go where I wanted it to, but the problem is you set up something like that that would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know why they even keep it in this movie. It doesn't do anything.
No, it kind of just gives you an excuse to show somebody get set on fire.
Yeah.
But you know what? I can't bring myself to hate this.
You know, I can't either. I I kind of dig parts of it.
I
I
would
think
even
it's
watch.
gonna.
I'm gonna go that far. I would watch this again. I don't know that they should have made it.
I think it's gonna be a fun movie. You know what I think this movie's really gonna be? I think it's gonna be a fun movie to watch with like my friends who are casual fans who didn't really read Flashpoint.
Yeah, they're gonna
That's
get to go. Oh crap! It's Thomas Wayne. That's a big deal. That kind of thing.
yeah, like I think there's fun to be had with this film. I don't think it's an awful film. Um, at the same time, it's not amazing. There are major problems, most of which come from the original comic, but I kind of I I kind of like it. It does make me kind of feel bad for Flashpoint because it was so big. I mean, not for me, but a lot of people were reading all of Flashpoint, and a lot of people were loving all of Flashpoint, and it's kind of got a bad reputation now solely because of its connection to New 52.
I also think it's kind of fun. This is a novelty, and I'm admitting this, but it is kind of fun to get a movie that's based on something this recent.
Yeah, I actually missed that. That's something I complained about with Wolverine and the X-Men, was that all the stories that they were mining were the same stories from the 70s and 80s that the
Flash
90s
cards.
animated series had mined. I was like, why don't you do some of the Grant Morrison stuff that came out a couple of years ago, or why don't you do? It's fun to see that. I wouldn't have picked. I feel like Blackest Night would have made more sense.
Oh, I would have really liked to have seen an adaptation of that because it would work better as a standalone film.
Yeah,
I think it would
I
have been
yeah, I
harder to
think
end it
so.
because Blackest Night, well, it kind of ends, but then Brightest Day happens, but maybe that
I've
doesn't
actually
matter.
still not read Blackest Night, so
Oh, you haven't read Blackest Night? Okay, well, I really enjoyed it. Again, it was kind of a novelty thing, but I really enjoyed it.
everybody really likes it. At some point I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna read through all of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, and when I do that, I'm gonna read Blackest Night.
Wouldn't it have been a really? Wouldn't it be a really cool aesthetic to see Blackest Night on film? Just because it's so spooky looking.
Yeah, no, I think Blackest Night makes a lot more sense than this.
But again, remember that this got put out for precisely the reason that you're saying it has a bad reputation, right?
Yep. Which I think hurts it more because I think when they announced this movie, everybody rolled their eyes.
Everybody groaned.
Yep.
Yeah. Um. Well, was there anything major in this that we didn't cover?
They totally ruined the only chance that I'm ever gonna get of seeing a cool grifter. Um,
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that.
his voice is wrong. They didn't even make his mask cool. Grifter has one of the coolest masks in all of comics, and they ruined that too. Um, I would have cut Grifter. Like not just like Grifter's not cool enough. Like I feel like that's going to be jarring and confusing for everyone else. Like anybody that doesn't know who that is, like, and not even just like a casual like DC fan. I feel like, do you even really know who Grifter is? Like, I feel like he's a really obscure character.
Yeah. No, not really.
It seems like a really weird choice. I to leave him
Well, it
in. I know he was
is.
in the comic, but
Yeah, but I mean, like, they didn't really leave very many other people out. Well, they left a few people out. They left out Elephant Woman.
how dare they?
She's in Flashpoint. But no,
Well,
I
then
guess
the Flying Graysons aren't here.
but to your point, they could have dropped that out. I don't think the Flying Graysons are in the actual Flashpoint series. Elephant Woman is in the series.
Oh, okay. Um, I
That's what
you
I'm
know
saying. Like people that are actually in these books, they left them out. But you know what? They didn't do Shazam the same way, and I was really surprised by that.
what did they call him in this? Captain Lightning, Captain Thunder.
It was Captain Thunder, and in the miniseries, I mean in Flashpoint, he's still got the traditional Captain Marvel costume. And in this, he had this black costume. I'm not sure why they did that.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean they were still the Shazam kids. They still had all the kids that come together to be, which I thought was kind of cool.
Right. But yeah,
Um,
I think
but
at
yeah,
the end of the day, I think this is one of the more interesting films because it doesn't work on a lot of levels. I still
right.
kind of like it.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's weird. I'm glad I watched it again. I think I had more of an appreciation for it when I had somebody else tell me Well, I didn't get to read the comic and find out about the whole Thomas Wayne thing, so it had that going for it. I tried to put myself in that mindset a little bit and go, would I have enjoyed this more than I did if I hadn't read Flashpoint? And when I was forced to say yes, I liked it better.
Well, I read half of Flashpoint, and I probably enjoyed this more than the comic. I don't know.
That's cool. Then you saw the ending, and the ending was actually better than Flashpoint. I'm glad we didn't get to the end, and they did the obligatory thing they did in the last issue of Flashpoint, where while Flash is running, we see the Justice League from 52 standing in the like in the ether.
I was waiting when he started running. I was like, oh, we're gonna have it. We're gonna have the hi Superman, hi Batman, hi Grifter. It's I've seen that page and I love it so much because it's so jarring. It's just like hi DC character, hi DC character, hi DC character, hi Stormwatch character.
And anybody familiar or not really familiar with this stuff is going to get to the end of that and be like, why is Flash wearing that different costume? Like, I'm not sure it plays the
And it
same way this
looks
series
bad.
does, where it's like, oh wait, he really did change something. Like, I mean, I guess you can say it's subtle and that's cool, but I don't know.
It looks so bad. I can't stress enough how bad that costume looks at the end.
Well, and also keep in mind that that is not the costume, exactly the costume he's wearing in Flashpoint.
Is it not?
Now you get to the end of Flashpoint, it doesn't have all those lines all over it. They
But
added those later.
that's in Justice League,
Yeah,
right?
but that's what I'm saying. When he shows, I think so. I don't remember. When he shows up at the end of Flashpoint, he has the armor, but it looks like the regular Flash suit, but it's just armored.
Maybe when they finished Flashpoint, they hadn't had like finalized designs for the characters yet. I I don't know because I mean Justice League #1 came out the same week as Flashpoint, right?
I think it did. I think
Um,
so. I forget.
I feel like that was a big thing was that we had Flashpoint number
Maybe it was
five
like
and Justice League #1.
I don't remember if that's exactly how it went down or not. I know a lot of comic stores had like big midnight parties and stuff for the release of
Maybe
Justice League
Flashpoint ended, and the next week they only had Justice League #1.
because they had you know what I think what it was that they only put out one book that week and it was the first book for 52 and they didn't release anything else that week.
Yeah, it was Justice League.
I think that's what it was and of course it sold like
No, no,
crazy.
it was definitely Justice League. Yeah, no. But regardless, um,
Yeah, sure.
I, despite all of my better judgment, I kind of enjoyed this.
Yeah, I know.
It
So
doesn't
did I.
make sense. It doesn't hold together narratively on its own. It's a giant cluster. I kind of had fun with it. I kind of want to watch it with my friends.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly how I felt about it.
So go watch it.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't I'm glad we didn't just straight up hate it. I mean, I had to really think about it. I'm kind of glad we didn't review it right away because I think this would have been at least on my end a totally different review if I had done it right after the first viewing.
Yeah, well, you'd seen it before I did, and I was like, "What am I in for?" And you're like, "I didn't like it."
Yeah, I know. Well, part of the thing that bugged me was I did think that some of the writing that wasn't straight from the comic was a little clunky, and the guy that adapted it, I don't really know him from anything, and I just think that some of his original dialogue was he had some kind of repeated words and stuff. He could have cleaned it up a bit. I don't know. It just wasn't great. And when I saw on the Blu-ray, and I haven't listened to it yet. On the Blu-ray,
I was
Jeff Johns
actually
has a
about to ask you.
commentary. Yeah, Jeff Johns has a commentary on this. I've not listened to it yet, but on the back it says with writer Jeff Johns. So I, like a normal person, assumed he actually wrote the screenplay, which is part of why I was so stoked to get this because I really thought it might be like Judd Winnick with Red Hood, where like he went back and fixed things and made it a better movie. And yeah, they didn't do that, and they totally misled me by by putting that on the box.
You didn't just go with, "Oh, well, he is a writer." Yeah, writer Jeff Johns.
Yeah, you know what? I really thought that they meant the person that wrote this. I don't know why I thought that. Well, anyway, I won't make that mistake again.
Never again will I believe it when it says writer, someone.
No, they probably didn't write this.
Unless it says written by, I
From
won't.
now on, when I go to movies and at the end it says it says a whoever film and then directed by whomever, I'm gonna be like, nah, I don't believe you. I'm checking IMDb when I get home.
You're gonna pick up comics and it's gonna say like, writer Warren Ellis, artist, uh, somebody, Mike Mignola, and you're like, I don't know if I buy that. Writer Warren Ellis, really? You think I'm gonna fall for that again?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ellis just plotted this and Mike Mignola actually wrote it. Well, anyway, we're coming up on an hour. I can't believe we talked about this for an hour, but anyway, so yeah, not awful. It's Flashpoint. I mean, it really is just Flashpoint.
Yeah. I would actually say, um, I would watch this, and then if you like this, go read the other minis. Skip the actual Flashpoint mini. Just watch the movie.
Yeah, I could think you could totally get away with that. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. Really hope you enjoyed it. And Eric, thanks as always for joining me on our epic quest as we continue watching these as they come out. I'm Captain Logan,
Hammer.
and we'll see you next time.